Today, we are talking about something that I've never had the chance to talk about before on this channel, in depth at least, and that's a dungeon crawling RPG. This is a genre of games that I'll admit, it's very niche. Yes, I know they have a bit of a reputation for being a bit grind heavy and long-winded and whatnot, but that's not always the case, and there are some that are absolutely excellent. So one that I was sent recently by NIS America to review that I think you might find interesting is Labyrinth of Refrain, Coven of Dusk for the Nintendo Switch. A really interesting title that follows a witch, her apprentice, and yes, a book. Is Labyrinth of Refrain, Coven of Dusk right for you? Or really for any of the dungeon crawling RPG fans in your life? Well, that's what we're going to find out in today's review. So welcome to Stuff We Play, home of everything weird and retro, and if that sounds cool to you, why not subscribe? And I know I'm throwing the Switch around a bit. It makes people uncomfortable, apparently, but I got a death grip on it. So as always in my reviews, we're going over 4 characteristics that will decide if this game is right for you. I'm going to go over the story, then the graphics, then the gameplay, and then the overall enjoyment factor. So with that, let's jump right into the story.
Welcome to the Dusk Theater.
Initially, Labyrinth of Refrain seems to be the story of Madame Dronia, or as she's known to many as Great Witch Baba Yaga. And she is a traveling witch who goes around pretty much just doing things as needed, and travels with Luca, who's her apprentice, and also, I believe, her niece. However, this soon turns out not to be the case, and this story instead follows the Tractatus de Monstrum, a great book about the great labyrinth underneath the town of Refrain, where tons of monsters roam and where there's mana, which is poisonous in large quantities to human, exists. And it was apparently written by the only person to have ever made it out of the Labyrinth of Refrain alive. However, you aren't playing as the book itself so much as the soul that inhabits it. See, Madame Dronia is going to the town of Refrain because she has been tasked by the governor or acting governor, and also for her own gains, to go explore the labyrinth. She in turn entrusts this task to you as the soul inhabiting the Tractatus de Monstrum, or Tracti as you get nicknamed by Luca, to go explore with an army of puppet soldiers. And how puppet soldiers work is that you get to choose up to 6 at a time, and then by the end of the game you have upwards of 40 of them. And they're these soldiers who are literally puppets that you animate and assign abilities to, but we'll get more into that when we get to gameplay. The story here is really interesting, especially when it pulls that early on bait and switch where you realize, oh, this isn't Dronia's story, this is Tracti's story, or rather, you as the soul who inhabits Tracti. It's interesting and pulls me along, and I'm glad it is focused on Tracti, because I'll be honest, though Dronia is a great part of the story, as much of a great witch she is, she's also a great big bitch. Whoa, gonna stop you right there. No swearing. There could be kids watch. I know the game's rated M, but damn. Dronia is honestly extremely cold-hearted and terrible, and it makes you realize why this game earned an M rating. Early on, Luca finds a pet sheep that she becomes attached to, and Dronia kills it. She constantly hits Luca. She berates her. Essentially, she is an ugly stepmother, except, she's an aunt who's also a witch. Despite Dronia being an absolutely horrid person who'll use her magical powers to brainwash people just to get her way, you always feel interested to see what she's going to do next. How is Dronia going to react in every single situation? However, her being a terrible, abusive person isn't the only thing that causes the M rating. Just putting this out there, pretty early on to the game, she nearly gets raped. I'm not kidding, she nearly gets raped. And that's like within the first couple hours of the game. Now granted, you don't ever get shown anything that's too explicit or graphic. I mean, this game does that kind of thing that's popular in a lot of RPGs such as this, where it has still images during the cutscenes in front of these very beautifully painted backgrounds. The only time the pictures ever animate is whenever Dronia puts on a puppet show, which has this very stilted marionette-esque movement. It's very off-putting but beautiful to look at. I cannot stress how beautiful this looks, but also in this opening cutscene, which is honestly one of the most gorgeous things I've ever seen in any RPG. Furthermore, where things seem to get a little samey graphically is within the Labyrinth of Refrain itself. It's a dungeon crawler, there's a lot of backtracking, but also it takes a long while before you'll see anything different. For the sake of avoiding spoilers, I've only included gameplay from the first 4 hours of the game here. If you notice, much of the dungeons look exactly the same. It makes me really thankful there's a really good map system in here, and I guess with that we should actually go into the gameplay. Labyrinth of Refrain is a dungeon crawler, but it's one of the most interesting dungeon crawlers I've ever played. I mentioned earlier the puppet soldier system, where you use a Tractatus de Monstrum, assemble these puppet soldiers and then inject them with a soul. You can have up to 40 of them by the end of the game, and you can have 6 in your party at any time. You can assign them individual stats, give them individual natures, even name each and every one of them. You can really tailor them as you like, and there's a lot of micromanagement here to get them just as you like. In fact, even going so far as whenever you die within the Labyrinth of Refrain, while you don't lose all of the stuff you gained, though you lose most of it, your puppet may become broken, and you'll have to acquire new parts so you can fix them up, or else, when you enter the labyrinth again, they'll be at a bit of a disadvantage. It's a really cool system, and I loved playing around with it. I loved upkeeping my puppets. You really become attached to them, especially since instead of just being assigned these random soldiers to fight for you, you make them yourself. What I think really helps us as well, though, is the other solid gameplay mechanics. It's very easy to move around just using the directional buttons, and battles transition so quickly from the exploration phase to the turn-based battles, and those too are a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the battle system here. It's pretty simple as far as RPGs go. You have your magic, you have your basic attacks, etc., but it doesn't need to be more than that. It really makes you excited. I always felt excited, like this game was just tempting me to, yeah, go try this thing, go see if you can interact with this. At one point you even get a thing that lets you break through walls within the dungeon. It's like, okay, if I break through this wall, will it lead me to another staircase, or will I find a trap pit and fall through it and take damage? There's a lot of risk reward in here in the gameplay, but I love it. It's fantastic. The downside to all of this is how samey the dungeons look and feel. Yes, you start to get a little bit of variation after a few hours in, but still, it takes a while. A long while. And that's a shame, as well as this RPG falls into the same pitfall that a lot of JRPGs do, and that's of course having overly long exposition. Before some missions into the labyrinth, you may have a 15 to 20 minute cutscene. And while yes, you can skip it, there might be valuable information in there, or another chance to see Madame Dronia just be a terrible person. I really didn't want to skip these, especially since the voice acting was completely on point.
God forgive me. There are even some who say the unclean ones are demons.
So this is just a story people made up to scare children, right?
I guess that's something else I should mention here, the music. I really like the music here. It has this very Eastern European vibe to a lot of it, which I guess makes sense seeing as where this game is set. I mean, come on, Dronia's flat out known as Madame Baba Yaga as well. What I haven't touched on yet either is that you may be looking at these graphics right now as you're exploring the dungeon and thinking, this looks a little bit jagged. And when you're playing in docked mode, yes, it does look a bit jagged. Though the game does always run very smoothly, load times were never too bad, and there was never any slowdown. However, in handheld mode, that's where this game really shines. The jaggedness seems to fade away while playing in handheld mode. It just looks really sharp. Things also seem just a tiny bit snappier in handheld mode. I noticed the same thing a bit as well in SNK Heroines, a game that I reviewed recently that was also published by NIS America, where the game itself seemed to have been optimized to run in handheld mode on the Switch. It's very interesting, and I don't know if it's just me, but I do think that this game in particular looks and plays especially well in handheld mode. So overall, what's the fun factor here? Do I think I could recommend this game to people who aren't that familiar with first-person dungeon crawlers? The answer is yeah, actually. I find a lot of first-person dungeon crawlers to be brutally difficult, and while if I'm in the mood for that, I will absolutely love that, through the Witch Petition feature here, you can actually either up the difficulty and thus the amount of mana and money that you earn by exploring the dungeons, or lower the difficulty, which, while yes, it will lower the amount of loot you can get, will make it easier. And as such, I feel like Labyrinth of Refrain really opens itself up more for people who aren't too familiar with the genre. While I still wouldn't say it's for everyone, as I said, if you get a chance, maybe go and look through some more gameplay to see if this is really the type of game you want to spend $50 US on. However, at that price point, which is a bit less than your average new Switch game release, I feel like if you're a fan of this genre of game, then Labyrinth of Refrain, Coven of Dusk is a no-brainer, especially with that excellent looking special edition they have coming out in the States. That looks fantastic, and I really wish we could buy it up here, and it's what, 20 bucks more, 30 bucks more, and you get all this great stuff? I think Labyrinth of Refrain is worth it. I love this game, I had a great time, and honestly, just talking about it now really makes me want to go back and play more of it. But you know what? I may be beginning to ramble on just a bit. Would you like to take a look at another new Switch game I reviewed recently? Well, why not check out my review of Miles and Kilo, one of the best 2D platformers I've played in a long time. But you know what, with that, Why don't you comment down below what your favorite dungeon crawler game is of all time, or favorite RPG in general, and subscribe to Stuff We Play for more great content like this, or even back us on Patreon, because every dollar earned from Patreon does go back into the channel itself. So with that, thank you very much for watching. I'm going to set that down. Stay classy, and I'll see you next time.